So a very good afternoon to all of you. Welcome to the latest in our series of Friday lunchtime webinars. We are expecting a lot of people to join us today. We've had almost 100 people sign up. So if you could bear with us, we'll just give it a couple of minutes to allow people into the room, so to speak. Hope you're all well. Hope you're coping well with lockdown 2. I don't know about you, but I'm focused now. Can't wait to get to the end of it. But we're talking about a very important subject today, as you know, MMC and future skills needs. And we've got a great lineup of speakers who I will introduce to you later on. But we've still got people coming in all the time. So as I say, if you could bear with us, we'll just give it a couple of minutes more before we kick off. Just while we're waiting to start, if you wouldn't mind in the chat box, just let us know who you are, give us your name, give us the company or the organisation for whom you represent, and maybe just give us an idea geographically of where you're from in the UK, because obviously now this webinar is being brought to you by all sorts of organisations that I'll explain later from across the UK. So just give us an idea of who you are in the chat box, the organisation for whom you work or you're from, and then tell us which part of the UK you're from, and that would be interesting. And I'll give you a bit of a shout out later. And also, please bear in mind that our speakers are going to be opening up the discussion. And then what we're looking for is you guys to come forward with your questions that we can get answered or have a chat about in the box. Well, I think we've got about 2/3 of the people in the room that we're expecting. So I think we'll make a start. So officially then, good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the latest of our Friday midday webinars that we've been holding since March, since the original lockdown. As you know, the regular viewers will know that we started off with COVID-19 topics, but we've now broadened that. We've also broadened the number of organisations that are bringing this webinar to you. So I'm Chief Executive of the Structural Timber Association. So obviously we're one of the hosts, but also Constructing Excellence now in a big way is helping to host these events. So Constructing Excellence nationally, the North East, Wales, the Midlands and the South West. And more latterly, we now welcome an association with the CIOB. So the importance of these webinars is growing. Now, today we're going to be concentrating on MMC, Modern Methods of Construction, and Future Skills. I think there is no doubt that MMC is now on everybody's lips when it comes to what the future holds for the UK construction industry. You will all remember the Modernise or Die report written by the Constructing Excellence co-chair Mark Farmer in 2016. And I think that report has acted as a catalyst to drive the use of MMC throughout the construction industry. Whoever you speak to now, whether it be government, whether it be stakeholders, whether it be clients, consultants, contractors and the supply chain, everybody has accepted that if we're going to deliver more quickly, then MMC has got to be part of the solution. Even Boris Johnson now has accepted that MMC has got to be part of the solution. Because if we look at his build, build, build mantra, which incidentally, he launched at an off-site factory in the Midlands, the build back faster is very much part of the MMC programme. So we find ourselves absolutely at the heart of the issue when it comes to trying to reinvigorate the UK economy going forward. I'm delighted to say that a conversation I had at Western College a couple of months ago, where we talked about the future needs of the UK construction industry. The colleagues at Western College all acknowledged that they wanted to learn more from us as the construction industry, what they needed to do in terms of the provision of young people and the future skills that are needed to allow us this momentum of uptake in MMC as a solution. So that's what today's all about. We've got a great lineup of speakers. I've got Joanne Philpott, who's the Vice Principal Technical Education and Governance at Western College, who's going to set the scene. And then Alex Hearn is here from North Somerset Council. Lisa Saunders from YTKO with Bristol City Council. And then Dave Thacker's with us from Countryside. Now, Countryside obviously is a housing developer, but also they've bought a timber frame company in West Frame, and that's an interesting move and an indication of the direction of travel. I think probably that's enough from me. Keep putting your names in the chat box with your organisation and geographically where you're from. We will be doing a feedback Slido form at the end of the hour, so please don't go away before you've filled in that. But I think without further ado, I'm going to hand over to you, Joe, and very kindly, if you'd set the scene for what we're here to talk about today. Thank you, Joe.
Thank you, Andrew. Yes, so welcome everybody. And I suppose, you know, for us at Weston College, I've seen that on the chat there's people from all over the country. So Weston College, we're down here in Weston-super-Mare. We're an outstanding college in the southwest. We're now the only outstanding provider in this region, and we've had a long journey with construction, and you know, we've built a fantastic department that really has responded to the skills and knowledges and behaviours that we need our young people and adults to learn in order to meet the needs of industry. And I suppose for us, MMC is the way forward. And I know it's one of those things that, you know, I've been involved in this nearly 20 years now. It seems to keep, you know, we're going to get into it, we're going to do more, we're going to do more. But I think, as Andrew stated, there's a real push from government to actually take it forward. And he did Boris Johnson did one of his talks at Dudley College, and we have some partnerships with them. And I've seen the MMC build that they have there and how they use that with their learners. But a lot of the conversations are, you know, what courses do we need to be running? You know, what skills do you as industry need for this? How do we need to prepare our learners in order to meet your needs? And I think that's what we really need to know, because a lot of the kinds of courses that are available, you know, for example, we do a lot of brickwork. This is no good to us here. You know, we do carpentry, but also on the same site within things such as engineering, we do an awful lot of CNC work, and I know for the timber frame that's quite useful there as well. So it's about us really understanding what those skills are. I think we've got a real opportunity with the new National Skills Fund with the level 3 adults. I know that government's working on those at the moment. And if we can be part of the conversation and start feeding back that actually these are the courses that we need, you know, do we need to be developing apprenticeships in this? Do we need to be looking at traineeships in this? And I think as well for our learners, I know industry is quite nervous at the moment around industry placements and work experience, but we find as well that that's one of the best synergies between ourselves and employers, because you get to see what the learners are like, and we can mold those people, whether they're young people or adults, in, you know, together, so that they have the right skills, knowledge and behaviours for your particular industry. So I think that's where we are. You know, we've always been a very employer-led organisation, and we absolutely want the feedback from employers about how do we meet your needs for the future. Thank you, Andrew.
Thank you very much. Great introduction, gives us a lead into what we're going to be talking about today. I'm now going to bring in Alex Hearn, if I may. Alex is with North Somerset Council, which incidentally, you won't be surprised to know is the council in which Weston College sits. And Alex, you're going to tell us a little bit about the council's move, I believe, towards MMC and your thoughts on this important subject. So Howard, if you could swap speakers, that would be great. Thank you.
Thanks very much, and thanks for having me. So yeah, we're really embracing this. I mean, I joined the council about 2.5 years ago, and I came with a little bit of a background in this myself, because I used to work for the Greater London Authority, and I ran their innovation fund in housing and land, which was very much pushing the diversification of housing delivery, and one way of doing that was obviously about diversifying the construction of homes, and we were really keen to invest in precision, what we were calling then precision manufactured homes, you know, whether it be funding for housing associations or for developers to build homes, or investing in technologies, or potentially factories. So I came with a bit of an agenda on this, and I'm really pleased that we've really embraced it from our development and planning perspective. So we've got a couple of projects on the books at the moment. We've submitted a planning application for a relatively small scheme, about 60 homes in Nailsea, on a site that we own. It's a passive house scheme as well, and it was designed by Mikhail Riches, who won the Sterling Prize, the last Sterling Prize. We got them before they won, thankfully, but we're really pleased that we're able to bring forward passive house, precision manufactured homes, policy compliant levels of affordable housing, really beautiful design, and we will be pushing that from a marketing perspective, because we think that certainly for market sale homes, that people will want good quality, energy efficient, well designed homes. On a larger scale, we've just done a deal with Keepmoat, who are going to be our development partner for 425 homes just outside of Weston Town Centre in our land at Parklands. So this is actually really close to the college's construction skills centre. So I think it starts to tell a really nice story actually about Weston as a place pushing this new technology, and at scale as well. So that is a big project. I suspect it's one of the bigger ones in the region, if not the biggest at the moment on the books, but I'm hopeful that somebody will beat us soon, just so that we really grow the scale of this. So we like it. We like it because it's energy efficient. We like it because it diversifies the delivery of new homes. But from an economic development and skills perspective and employment perspective, we really like it because we recognise that from a construction industry perspective, this is one of the things that the sector should embrace, almost from a sort of existential perspective, I guess. You know, we know that there is a shortage of tradespeople. We know that there's an issue around the age profile of tradespeople, and if we help diversify construction, that's a good thing in terms of keeping the delivery of homes moving. But also, I think this form of construction, you know, you can start to change the structure of employment. So people who work in factories can become employees or full-time employees of those factories, so that they can live and work in the local area. They can put down roots, they can easily get a mortgage, they can grow their families and go to work every day, and participate in in a form of effectively engineering, manufacturing. So it just changes the job. It changes the job. Clearly, you know, there'll be different skill requirements within the process of manufacturing a home or parts of homes, but it does sort of just adjust the profile, I guess, from something relying on trades and subcontractors moving around, competing against each job, to having a sort of more predictable role in the labour market. And we like that from an economic development perspective, because we want to ensure that people who live in North Somerset have more secure employment and more predictable employment than perhaps some sectors have historically provided. So particularly if young people are coming through the system, coming through a great institution like the college, learning in Weston or elsewhere in North Somerset, and being able to get skilled employment as a result of it, I think that tells a really good story. I think that we are, from a planning perspective, we're just preparing our new local plan at the moment, and you know, there's no doubt that the requirement for homes in the region is very, very significant in the west of England. You know, the government's housing figures, even the ones that they may reconsider, are very, very significant and will require a step change in delivery, and that will mean an all-out assault on delivery, not just one silver bullet, but a multitude of measures, and this has definitely got a role to play. So, you know, I will be keen, as somebody also responsible for our planning service, that we will be preparing policy that encourages this. You know, and that'll be in principle, but I will be very keen that my planners, and this is pertinent to their skill set, understand it and understand what it means from a spatial perspective and a design perspective, so that they can get comfortable with it and promote it and enable it. So I think that there are a multitude of sort of skills dimensions to this, not just around construction, but design, financing, planning, marketing, as well as the sort of construction and assembly. I think it really it's a real opportunity to start describing construction as a digital process, one that is about precision engineering and manufacturing, and I think that in itself ought to help make construction more attractive to a greater diversity of entrants into the labour market. You know, this is a really exciting move for the sector, that you know, who wouldn't want to get into a form of precision engineering as a young person? That's a really attractive market to get into.
Right, thank you, Alex. Thank you for that. Interesting to see how a local authority client is really behind this move, and I think part of what we're trying to do today is indicate what the pipeline of work is likely to be and the direction of travel that clients are moving in. So thank you for that. Right, I'm going to bring in Lisa now. If we could change the cameras over, Howard. Lisa, as we know, is with YTKO, working in association with Bristol City Council, Bristol Housing Festival. I know there's lots of great things, exciting, innovative things going on in Bristol, which we thought perhaps you'd like to share with us.
Yes, most definitely. Thank you, guys. Yeah, thanks for joining today on this discussion topic. It's something I think is really valuable and is most definitely required. So yeah, I think whether we work in the housing, education, or even the construction sector, we all have a concern around the mentioned sort of growing housing crisis around us and the construction skills shortage, or rather, I think a leaky pipeline of talent into the sector. I know CITB estimate that between sort of 60 and 80% of FE trained new entrants, and that's including apprentices, they fall out of the sector within 2 years. So obviously that's not ideal, but more offsite and professionalising of the sector might actually improve the appeal for those new entrants to remain in the sector for sort of more of the longer haul. I think as someone from a traditional construction background, I found that the rise in modern methods of construction has been something we as an industry fear and potentially we put off embracing for what can seem like really valid reasons. And after reading a report from CITB, the impact of MMC on skills requirements for housing, the research within that has indicated the well-known fact that MMC require less on-site labour to assemble homes than brick and block, and potentially they require a smaller on-site workforce with a different skill set from those that are currently being used. And as we could predict, there would be no real change in the professional and non-manual workforce, as this is a constant requirement irrespective of build. So the data in this report actually was encouraging to note that although there would be a reduction in on-site trades overall, this was mostly equal and in some places higher to the same trades that would be required off-site if housing targets were actually met. So for example, using the assumed sort of constant trajectory for the growth in housing to reach the annual target of 300,000 homes, within full volumetric construction, the stats that are provided state that roofers would decline 33% approximately in on-site labour. However, they would actually see a 70% increase in off-site labour. With panelised construction, wood trades and interior fit-out would decline around 9% in on-site. However, almost a 50% increase in off-site labour. It obviously varies from the differing MMC categories, of course, and there's more data currently from full volumetric than panelised at present. But we do anticipate that this would change with more panelised systems being sort of seemingly favoured over full volumetric due to perhaps greater flexibility within design and planning. I think I've managed projects previously supporting traditional construction skills and training, and will definitely continue to do this in tandem with the new skill sets that MMC requires. As we all know, there's still work that's needed here too. So there's a real danger of existing SMEs not moving with the times as the requirement for MMC increases. We know that a major attraction of MMC is to rid of the wet trades for various reasons. So an important question most definitely would be, what are we going to do with all those brickies, you know, if this is the move? And a really interesting stat was that 17% of SMEs in construction, so only 17% of SMEs in construction have knowledge of the MMC categories. So this, as we know, will lead to serious sort of unemployment as MMC gathers momentum. So I think that this is definitely the right place to start having these discussions, if not, albeit we should have kind of brought this to the table a hell of a lot earlier. There's going to be the need to upskill existing workers, and that needs to be captured in these. It's not just all about new entrants; it's about existing workers. These are going to be required to cover site management, integration, on-site placement, and assembly. It's necessary to ensure that the professional, management, technical, the non-manual workforce, they develop the right digital skills as well. That's going to be an increasing part of the construction work in the future. From a previous project, it was a scary stat that so construction industry have the lowest digital skill set bar agriculture. So that's the current market that we need to really make sure that we're not moving too fast for them to transfer over. In addition to the positive news about the transfer and upskilling of traditional construction skills to off-site workforce, MMC offers 6 key functions that are associated with the adoption of off-site construction. So these highlighted so far are the digital design, estimating and commercial, the off-site manufacturing, logistics, the site management and integration, and on-site placement and assembly. And they're just some of the main areas that we need to make sure that we've got course provision designed to uphold the shift to MMC. And I think with more MMC projects being explored and piloted, only then are we going to be able to obtain more information and data that we're able to extract and utilise, which in turn allows us to build confidence in a relatively immature area of construction. And further understand and develop the training and qualification for skills that need to support that increased take-up of off-site home building, but also supporting skills relating to current build types. It's not going to happen overnight, so we need to really get that balance right. And at YTKO, we're leading on an Innovate UK project, which is enabling housing innovation for inclusive growth. So it's really catchy. I know it's taken us a while to master it. And it's got an impressive consortium of partners, which include Bristol City Council, LNG Modular Homes, Skanska, Buccleuch, and they're just Bristol Housing Festival, just to name a few key partners. And the aim of this project is to unlock current barriers and quantify the real benefits of MMC. And to do that, we have to deliver product, process and procurement improvement, because it simply won't exist otherwise. This is really allowing us to shine a light on how and where best to use MMC. And it's not to rule out traditional construction, but to be more aware of the best use of a piece of land and to enable those decision makers within local authorities all the available information to procure with confidence. There is a clear sign that there is the scope and willingness to support MMC from all audiences. And I think we have identified within this project that in order for MMC to succeed, that there is much more work needed around understanding its place alongside traditional construction. So we're continuing to overcome these barriers, and we have a real solution to bring to market. And thankfully, we're not alone in thinking that MMC is here to stay. So I guess the question is, how do we train our future workforce for the relatively unknown? And I know that there's probably going to be lots of discussion points around this, and I'm excited to hear them. I think if we're to truly equip and support our future workforce, we really do need to ensure that the skills that they're learning are going to bridge the real gaps in the industry, and not just the here and now, but moving forward. So I think the market for the supply chain is going to change massively. Traditional construction has a high number of SMEs, while MMC is shortening that supply chain. So there's another question here about how do the SMEs get their jobs? So a point to maybe discuss in further could be local SMEs would perhaps get a license to install certain systems or manufacturers' processes. And these are all fundamental things to consider and really hash out in further detail. But I guess with MMC becoming a viable option for local authorities, we really need to ensure that there is a supply chain to match the demand, really. So yeah, that's all from me.
Okay, thank you very much indeed. Thank you, Lisa. So last but not least in our panel, just to get the discussion going, I can see already in the chat box and in the Q&A box, we're beginning to get quite a lot of reaction. So that's good, not surprising, but we look forward to that. But before we go on to the chat box and the Q&A, Dave Thacker, welcome. Thank you for joining us. Dave and I have known each other for a few years now through the Structural Timber Association. Dave worked at a company called West Frame up in the Midlands, which was bought out by Countryside, what, a couple of years ago now, Dave?
Yeah, it's 2.5 years now.
2.5 years, that's right. Yeah. So bit of a change of direction for you, I'm sure. Yeah. But I think what's of particular interest is the fact that Countryside or company such as Countryside has taken the decision to buy its own timber frame company. So very much like to hear from your perspective what we've been talking about today. Thank you, Dave.
Thank you, Andrew. Hello and welcome to everyone today. I'm Dave Thacker, as Andrew's just mentioned, part of Countryside PLC. I've been in this great industry of ours for 40 years, and 20 years of those I've been entrenched in timber frame and modern methods. A joiner by trade, and very proud of my roots. As Lisa mentioned there very, very well, I'm going to try and attempt to tell you how modern methods have hit the builders, for want of a better term. Whichever modern method of construction we look at, whether it's timber, steel, concrete, we need to change our approach to the whole. It needs to be a cradle to grave, looking at our end user and the durability of the home after we've completed. There are many benefits of modern methods of construction: quality, speed, waste reduction, quality again, because we're always twice as good as the traditional methods. But there's also some hurdles and challenges. And the big hurdle I'm finding with a PLC is in the education of our own staff to embrace the product. We're currently, we've got a factory up in Warrington, which is doing a modular based unit. We've got a new factory in Caldwell in Leicestershire that will be 3 times the size of the one in Warrington. We're looking to spread our wings down into Bristol. So you'll probably see us coming down there soon. But it's all about internally our drive to champion the modern methods of construction and our modular product. So I'm going to be driving into all of the regions when the time is right to educate our staff. One of the other elements is the attitude on site to change. And And probably the hardest one for me at the moment is educating the commercial teams on the benefits of using our modular product. They keep coming back to us and saying, you're too expensive, we can't do that, this doesn't fit budget, but they're still not looking at the cradle to grave issues. It's still all about smashing the subby on the top of the head and saying, give it to me cheaper, give it to me cheaper. But never once do they ask, what sort of value engineering can you offer us? We've got to have a new approach, a new culture, a new acceptance to change within our industry, because it is literally like banging your head against the traditional brick wall. For those of you of a similar age to me, you'll all remember British Leyland cars and the fabulous range of vehicles called, including the Austin Allegro, Austin Princess. A real jewel in the economy, the local economy, though, for all the wrong reasons. They were out of touch, lacking in any ideas, unwilling to move with the times, unlike their Japanese counterparts, who were moving at pace with automation and smart, cost-effective new processes, including quality control. That's how I see our industry at the moment. We're stuck in our old ways, bad habits, unwillingness to change, and the only quality control we have is a defects department. We have one advantage, is that the basic product is really good, unlike the Austin Allegro, which had a defects list that was as long as the M6. Modern methods of construction has brought many fantastic new ideas and innovations. Our construction industry is going to be the foundation of the British economy to recover from today's challenges. But the main obstacle, just like British Leyland, is this unwillingness, almost obstructive approach to the change. We're here to stay. But too many times I hear when I walk on site, oh, but this is how we've always done it. Yeah, why change it? It's not broke. We don't need to fix it. Well, it's not broke today, but it soon will be. And if we don't change, especially towards our staff, and giving them an understanding of the cradle to grave, better designs, and things like that, we are gonna struggle. Steve Clark sat exactly where I was last week on this very same platform, and I ripped up my webinar notes for today and started again, because he mentioned a couple of excellent things, and one of them was about lean programs. And someone asked, what's a lean program? And he responded, it's a proactive approach to a smooth running project, whereas an agile program is a reaction to the normal construction site attitudes based on builders' optimism. Boom or bust, 100 miles an hour or standing still. So one thing to remember whenever we're programming MMC is that we're only as fast as the slowest element in the process. I'd just like to sort of conclude this little 5-minute slot with a true story. A very close friend of mine who'd spent 36 years in manufacturing with British Aerospace, and also he made passports in a very secure area, was headhunted by a very large player in our industry based in Canary Wharf. Within the first week of him starting his employment, he rang me up. Dave, yes, Mark, what can I do for you? Can you please explain to me why we spend £17 million a year on a department called, and at this point there was a pause as if he was looking round to see what this name was, and then it came. Snagging. My reply was very quick. It's because we can't get it right first time. So I'm going to end on that and hand you back to Andrew.
Thank you, Dave. That was really interesting. Thank you. Great content. I'm going to come on to some of the questions now, but just before I do, a few shout outs. Hello to Mark Probert from Binderholtz, Dan Macy, Mary Bennell, Gavin Thomas, Susan Perry, Steve Tressy, Gemma Days in the house, John Atkinson, Stuart Downs, Joanne Borderick, and Jessica Newton. I'll do a few more later. I took that from notes from my American webinar where they give a shout out to all the people that have signed in. There is a question, Dave, to you from Fred Carter, which, if you don't mind, I'm going to answer in my capacity as Chief Exec of the Structural Timber Association.
Go ahead, Andrew.
The question is, have you noticed a reduction in demand for timber construction from housing associations following recent issues with fire? I can say to that, definitely no reduction. In fact, there's a huge increase in requests from all sorts of clients wanting to use timber, because obviously it's the building material of choice when it comes to sustainability issues, embodied carbon and so on. In fact, only this week, I was involved in a webinar with our Welsh members, with Welsh Government. They have come up with a policy that they're going to build in a couple of years' time up to 1,400 houses, and they're all going to be timber frame. That is the policy of Welsh Government. So I think going forward, we're going to see more and more timber used, because obviously the big issue of the day is the net zero carbon agenda for 2050, and building with timber is a huge bonus when it comes to that. I hope you don't mind me taking on that question, Dave.
No, that's fantastic, Andrew. Perfect answer.
Now then, Fred Carter has asked about what carbon targets have been set for the 425 units, the Keep Moat project. Is anyone able to sort of give a view on that, Alex?
Yeah, I can. So, I mean, it's a big scheme over a number of years. So there's a requirement for a phase of zero carbon, and then all the other homes have to be 80% carbon reductions against 2013 national baselines, and they're all nil gas, so there's no gas in the scheme, and every home has an EV charging point. So that's the background on that. And there's two technologies in this. So we have, I think that might be somebody else asked that question. So there is some panelized and some volumetric within the scheme.
Okay, thank you, Alex. I've got a question for you, Lisa, if I may. Question from Mark Probert. He says, we know you're using Z-Pods in Bristol. Just wondered how it's going.
Fantastic. It's completed. It's actually one of my favourite projects that we've been involved in so far, on the Innovate project. And they work really closely with care leavers and the YMCA. So those homes, those Z-Pods, I actually went up to do a socially distant site visit when the cranes were up there putting all the pods in place, which is quite remarkable, not only because we were just allowed to go somewhere and be somewhere, but to actually see this in person. It's been quite a long, from planning through to that stage. It's an arduous process, especially when you're trying to be innovative about things, and when you're involved with local authority, it can be very difficult to have the speed that we require for MMC in terms of the processes that are held back, let's say. So Z-Pods is doing fantastic, and the reason why I think Bristol City Council have been a real key partner in the project that we're on is they're shining a light on their processes, procurement, and everything like that, to understand how we can improve those processes to really allow MMC the full flex that it's designed to give. So we're working with them on a council change model. So what they've done is they're integrating, I guess, the current KPIs that are used for traditional construction. And obviously they don't stack up, pardon the pun, to modern methods of construction. We can't measure apples for apples, so they're looking at a way in which we can really have some fit for purpose KPIs, really, so that we can show the benefits for a solution, and whether that's traditional or MMC, but really giving a fair and transparent platform for both. And then, you know, being able to, it's got the scope, I think, for Bristol City Council to lend its workings elsewhere to really see this pick up.
Thank you very much. Tom Jarman makes a very interesting point with a question. Obviously, a lot of the emphasis around MMC at the moment is on new build, but a huge issue that we've got coming up, again, particularly with the net zero carbon agenda, is around retrofit, remedial work. Do any of the panelists have a view in terms of MMC in that field? And again, maybe giving advice to Weston College as to what they need to do in terms of providing provision for education. Who'd like to start with that? Lisa, as you're on screen, do you want to kick off?
Of course, thank you. Well, I think I've got a bit of a background in retrofit, working for a main contractor previously, and I think some of the benefits of the projects that I've had the pleasure of being involved in, I'm sure Dave will probably have his own opinions on this as well, is that there is still a benefit that MMC offers to retrofit. You know, these current properties are not going anywhere. We need to make sure they are maintained to the growing standards that we expect people to be able to live in. So there's certain things within panelized systems we've been working on with a number of our developers within this project, that they're able to adapt certain systems to current property stock that enables the future proofing of these homes. And we were lucky enough to get some manufacturing facility visits, and so there's so much dialogue that's happening, and I think we just need to be able to get it out into the open so people can understand and build confidence around supporting the current properties with retrofit, and then upskilling the people that need to carry out that maintenance. So yeah, there's quite a lot being done, and it's exciting to see, I think, the movement that even just one of our companies have had, let alone all 9 developers that we're involved in.
Excellent. If the panelists don't mind, I'm going to ask each one question for one panelist. We've got so many questions coming in. I'd like to cover as many as I can. So I'm going to move on to a question for you, Joe, if I may, because we've had the 2 Dans ask similar questions about pre-existing ideas and mindset of years 10 and 11. How do you as a college intend to change that mindset of construction to make it more exciting, to embrace the MMC potential? What's your thoughts on that, Joe, please?
Well, there's a couple of projects that we've got in the pipeline at the moment. One is working one of our current employers around having far more visual prompts and a far more visual kind of things that those young people can come and look at and come and see. I mean, at the college, we do quite a lot of taster sessions, and students can sign up for the half-term sessions and things like that, and come and have a go and see what it's like in order to do that. I think very much as well, it's about having our staff go into the schools and colleges as well, you know, to see what it is that people want to do, and actually take some of those exciting taster events into those particular providers as well. I mean, interestingly enough, we've always had open evenings, except for all of that kind of thing. And our virtual ones are far more, we've got far more footfall on a virtual one than we do on a physical one, which we found really surprising, especially in construction and engineering, because quite often it's our workshops, our fantastic provision that sells the product. But actually, across the whole college, I think it's just a change in market, isn't it? Young people are far happier just to log into something and have a look. Whereas, you know, maybe if you're talking to adults and retraining, they probably want to come and have a look a little bit more at what we do.
Okay, thank you. I'm going to keep you on the screen, if I may, because I've got a question from Mark Southgate. Mark says, in terms of future-proofing our construction workforce, should some training in MMC fundamentals be a part of all construction learning from now on? With Savills, McKinsey and others estimating MMC homes could comprise 20% of new housing units by 2030. Many workers will be working on site with MMC, even if they aren't working on MMC housing themselves. What's your What's your thoughts on that, Jo?
Yeah, no, I think I completely and utterly agree. I mean, the way that the new apprenticeship standards and also the T levels which are coming online allows us to be far more innovative with our curriculum. Previously, there'd be a technical certificate behind whatever the apprenticeship framework was, and it was very much set with those outcomes. Now, because we're asked to deliver to knowledge, skills, and behaviours, we can actually curriculum far more to what's necessary. So now I completely and utterly welcome that, and we're looking to do a bit of a curriculum rewrite this year, you know, with all the changes with COVID and what the industry is looking for. So MMC will definitely be where I'll be directing the team to make sure that they put into that new plan.
Okay. Jo, just a comment come in from Mark Probert of Binderholz. He said, Jo, would you be interested linking up with the Austrian timber schools who
Yes.
are way in advance in terms of what we're talking about? If that's something of interest to you, Jo, I can put you in touch with Mark, who is
Definitely.
the STA.
Definitely. If you think about the Austrian, the German and the Swiss kind of model around technical education, it's far more advanced than ours is. It's far more, you know, it looks to the actual needs of the region, and it's completely and utterly built by that regional need. And unfortunately, we're not quite there yet, although it is being muted. And I think Dan Macy's just said, would we welcome on-site classrooms? Absolutely, you know, definitely. The T levels and the apprenticeships are both asking for is to work at, you know, in partnership with our employers to give them that real world experience. And I'm sure, as quite a lot of you guys know, preparing some of our full-time learners for the rigors of a construction site, those behaviours that they need, you know, you could use the term snowflake. So anything that actually brings them more into actually understanding what's needed. And I like the way, you know, physical as well. Sometimes the physical exertion of being on a building site all day, you know, they need to realise and understand that too. And sometimes they're not very resilient for that. So
I'm going to keep you on screen for one more question, if I can, Jo, from Carol Hennigan from Bouygues. How are the colleges approaching the groups that have lost jobs due to COVID, particularly the 16 to 24-year-old category? Many have digital skills that can be transferred. What are your thoughts on that, Jo?
So, you know, we're really lucky as a college. Our apprenticeship provision is held quite well. We have had some drops in some of the areas such as leadership and management, in business, hospitality sector, obviously. But construction is nowhere near as down as we thought it was going to be. We do a lot of work. Construction apprentices like to change employers regularly anyway, you know, they seem quite keen on doing that. So we're very well set up for that. But as soon as we start to hear anything from the employers around furlough, and then, you know, that they're thinking of redundancies, we're trying to get others, you know, on board straight away. And we've been really successful, especially sometimes where apprentices are quite close to finishing within the last year. Employers have been a lot keener at taking them on as well. We also have traineeships as well. So we've got space to put learners onto that traineeship program for a period of time, reassess their skills, etc., especially, you know, for the 16 to 24, and then we can put them back into apprenticeships as those come online. Yeah, so hopefully that answers that question.
Thank you. I wonder if I could ask a couple of questions of you, Dave, now, if Howard could swap the screens over. First of all, from Ethan Pratt. Ethan says, I'm concerned that when imported modular construction from countries such as Turkey are confirmed to meet standards or are backed by the likes of NHBC, that British manufacturing companies will not be able to compete financially. Additionally, concerns then over the environmental impacts on haulage, distribution, etc. What are your thoughts on that as a timber frame manufacturer, Dave?
I tend to agree with him. Our current attitudes to modern methods of construction are still very labour intensive in all sense. We need to streamline, we need to improve our designs, and we need our site guys to embrace what's coming through, and not fall back on their traditional quoting methods. That's the way we've always done it. So yeah, we've got to sharpen our approach to it. You know, it's a monopoly out there, and we're part of it.
Interestingly, Dave, part of the meeting I mentioned earlier with Welsh Government this week was an understanding that if we're going to move forward We need to change our procurement habits. We also need to change our thought process in terms of how we look at standardization.
Yeah.
So those were two big issues that we're taking forward with Welsh Government and our members to look at efficiencies and so on.
One of the big things that I've been driving here at Countryside is the quality element, the get it right first time, and the interaction with the construction teams, and more importantly, the design teams, because there's almost a naivety to how we can improve the final finished home. And just because it's cheap on a piece of paper, it doesn't mean it's going to be cheap or the cheapest approach. So yeah, I do annoy a lot of people, which is part of my remit.
Another question for you, Dave, while you're on, from Paul Kemish, who's also in the timber frame industry. He says, having spent almost 40 years in the industry, I can see no real training through colleges for MMC. This is a real problem as no qualifications can be gained at present. Well, I suppose that's the raison d'etre for this whole webinar today, exactly that. But would you concur?
Yes, in the past. I know in the last 2 years, I've been linking up with the Leicester colleges quite a lot, trying to get, we have a graduate scheme already as part of the Countryside ethos. And we are now doing the Kickstart apprenticeships, which is a government-driven thing. Don't know a great deal about it, but it's to get more apprenticeships into the factory environment. So I don't know any more than that, but we've already signed up for it. So yeah, that's a push. It is about education and just changing a bit of the attitude. Thank you, Andrew.
By the way, before I move on to Alex, Jim Roach sends his regards from ARV Solutions. Now you're moving to Bristol. He says his office is always open for you. Incidentally, I see you've appointed an old mate of ours, Darren Dancy, as your MD in the Southwest.
That's true. Yes.
Crest's loss is your gain, I would suggest.
Yes, I've not met him yet, but I'm very encouraged to get myself down to the Bristol area and see what he's up to.
Darren's a lovely chap, and he'll be an ideal fit for your business, I believe. So,
thank you.
Sorry, Andrew, can I just add on one point to that? Sorry to interrupt. Just on the last point, Dave, I think I definitely agree. There's lots that need to be done, and I know that we've at YTKO we've spoken about it would be good to see an accredited APEL, accredited prior experiential learning framework. So that could be set up to map the skills and the competencies which exist in the traditional sector, but they are beneficial to the MMC sector, because as we're finding out, it's not always going to be about the new learners. So anything around that is always going to be welcome, I think, as well.
Thank you, Lisa.
I agree.
I'd like to bring Alex online now. I've got a question for Alex. While we get Alex on, I'd like to say hi to Paul Richards, Tom Jarman, Adam Burridge, Steve Foxon, Michelle Cole, Paul Boyce, Alan Yates, Julie Bell Barker, Paul Payne, Ethan Pratt, Paul Kemish, and Ben Tremenwell. Oh, I don't think I've pronounced that correctly, but I apologise, Ben. It's my handwriting. I've got a question then for Alex from Dan Macy. Within the local authority planning, there's an obvious market criticism on the process not being fit for purpose, with also a lack of personnel to handle applications in a fast and appropriate manner. How will the lack of MMC understanding of its major benefits be recognised in this department? There's a hot potato for you, Alex. Over to you.
Thanks. So, I mean, a really good question. I mean, planning is one of the teams I'm responsible for, and we've over the years we've faced planning has faced a disproportionate level of budget cuts in local government. We struggle with recruitment and retention, but I don't know. It's a good question, but I'm not sure necessarily planning is going to be a major barrier to this. I think that actually, just thinking about something Dave's mentioned a couple of times about quality, I think there's a real opportunity here. And the story about British Leyland, we should be treating house building or home building as a proud British manufacturing sector. You know, it should not be this thing that people don't like. People don't like house building in this country because of things like impact, and it does create some issues for planning, including for members on planning committees, not just planning officers. So I think it's about you know, if we're to recruit more people into the planning sector, we do need to, and a different type of skill, embracing this as a sort of a digital and engineering sector. It should be exciting, and actually you should be proud to be a planner, enabling outcomes of super high quality homes, digitally enabled, as a sort of a leading technology sector in the country. And I suppose another reflection is that homes not built by MMC, they look the same all over the country. They got the same urban design principles, the same horrible cul-de-sacs, and they're potato printed all over the country from the top to the bottom. That's volume, and we managed to do that. I would rather we were delivering better quality at volume, not mediocrity that people don't like.
Thanks, Alex. I think it's true to say that with MMC, there's going to be a degree of educational need for everybody, from from one end to the other, in terms of how they operate and so on. Right, we've got 4 minutes left. John Atkinson asks a question. I'm going to ask Dave if he'd pick this one up. It was mentioned about cradle to grave. So how do manufacturers complete sustainability on timber? And also, why not cradle to grave, or sorry, cradle to cradle through recycling? That's a good question. So cradle to grave, how do manufacturers complete sustainability on timber? And why not cradle to cradle through recycling, Dave?
A good question, one that I haven't got a definitive answer to. Cradle to cradle, it's the first time I've heard that. Recycling.
Actually, Dave, I haven't heard that one before.
Yeah. Recycling and waste. One thing I have noticed in the last 15 years is the reduction in waste. Optimizing our timber supply is the first parameters that we use. Our waste has reduced to a point where we're around, I think off the top of my head, we're down to 22 pence of waste cost per metre of panel that we produce. And that is falling, mainly through design. So that's how I see the recycling. And purely from a cost point of view, any element of my waste, I try and redesign something that I can use it, whether it be soffit kites or just a patras. Reuse every element, and the only way we can manage to do that is through subtle design changes. I don't think that's answered the question very well,
I've got a couple of notes saying that great Southwest Design Studios, Sibley Grove, are pushing cradle to cradle design principles, and Paul says cradle to cradle takes into account the disposal of the building materials as well as the end of its useful life. So thank you for that.
Yeah.
Okay, look, what I'm going to do, ladies and gents, I've got a few comments and questions on the screen from Mark Probert, which I'll pick up myself very quickly. What's the current issue on fire in England over 11 metres? Unfortunately, we don't know, Mark. We're still waiting for MHCLG to come up with a result of the combustible materials ban, so I can't answer that one for you. What will boilers be replaced with? I don't think we're going to have a chance to answer that one. And then I think this is a bit of a plug now. We at Binder supplied and engineered the product. Do you think more will be required? I think more of your product would undoubtedly be required. And then you say that you're delivering CLT. Would like to know how we can coordinate M&E plug and play partners. We're not going to be able to go into that one now. because we're running out of time, unfortunately. What I'm going to ask, would Howard kindly put on the screen the Slido survey, ladies and gents, if you wouldn't mind, before you go, answering the questions in the survey. It does help us in terms of putting together future events. This is going to be available for the next half an hour. So please go on to that survey and answer as best you can. What I would like to do on all your behalves is thank Joanne, Alex, Lisa and Dave for their excellent contributions this afternoon. I can see by the amount of comments and questions we've got in the chat box and in the Q&A box how interesting the topic has been. And I dare say we're going to have to run this one again. So thank you for your time. Thank you for your knowledge. Thank you to Howard and the team at Leaders Meets for hosting it. And thank you, ladies and gentlemen, for giving up an hour of your time to come and listen. I hope you found the last hour worthwhile, valuable. This is being recorded and it will be available on the Leaders Meets website very, very shortly. Next week, ladies and gents, on Friday, we have what we call our State of the Nation panel, where we bring together experts from the industry, from various parts of the supply chain, from the Northeast, from Wales, from the Southwest and the Midlands, to hear what they have to say in terms of the state of play in their current part of the UK. And then we open up with a debate and discussion as we've done today. So without further ado, please fill in the survey. But for me, have a great afternoon and have a great weekend. And I'll see you all next week. Thank you very much. Bye-bye now.